Hello and welcome back to the channel. For today's video we're going to be discussing the ever elusive Alys Rivers and the mysteries that are kind of surrounding her. I will say quickly before getting into this video, if you've not seen episodes 3, 4 and 5 of season 2 of House of the Dragon, I would advise clicking off this video as I will be discussing things that happen in those episodes. Now that that's out of the way, who actually is Alys Rivers? Now, from her surname Rivers, we can denote that she is a bastard born of the Riverlands, as well. Rivers is the surname given to bastards born in the Riverlands, much like in the North it's snow. However, who are her actual parents? That's a slightly different question, as we only really have a half-baked answer to it. In Fire and Blood, we don't actually have an answer to who our mother is. There's not really even a hint or suggestion as to who it is, which leads me to believe it's probably just someone of common birth, someone that's not tied to a notable house. Otherwise, I think thered be some form of rumour as to who it could be. Her father is a different story, however, and is rumoured to be Lord Lionel Strong, who is the father of Sir Harwin Breakbones and Larys Clubfoot, and by extension the genetic grandsire of Jace Luke and Joffrey Velaryon. The next kind of guess at who her father is, again, because Fire and Blood doesn't just have one narrative, is that it is just a member of House Strong, and that Alys was a wet nurse for Lord Lionel, as we don't actually know Alys's age, and it's said that she kind of deceived people, or was deceiving in the fact that she looked younger than her years. The Maces put her age around 40, and I'm kind of more inclined to lead towards that, as it does back up the theory that she is a bastard of Lord Lionel Strong, and I kind of subscribe to that as her parentage from Fire and Blood. Now, how we go about getting introduced to Alys does differ slightly between the book and the show. In the book, essentially, Daemon takes Harrenhal and makes everyone there, for want of a better word, his captives. And amongst the small folk there is a mysterious witch kind of figure named, you guessed it, Alys Rivers, who is described as a woods witch, a sorceress, has this kind of mysterious power around Harrenhal. But what is interesting is that it is described that Daemon Targaryen was immune to them, for little is heard of the supposed sorceress while the prince held Harrenhal, which is, to put it one way, quite a contrast to what we see in the show. As in the show, within the first night of Daemon staying at Harrenhal, he's having these weird, trippy visions of Millie Alcock's Rhaenyra sewing the head of Jaehaerys back on, after the events of Blood and Cheese. Then he wakes up outside by a weirwood tree with Alys Rivers speaking to him. Then, he has another vision of young Rhaenyra again on the Iron Throne, where he then decapitates her. He then starts seeing Laena around Harrenhal, and all of a sudden, he's having a weird vision with his mother, Alyssa Targaryen, which I don't really want to speak about. But yeah, which is quite a kind of contrast to what we hear in the books, as seemingly these effects that Daemon are immune to is definitely not the case in the show. So how does Alys seemingly have this mystical power where she can give Daemon these visions within Harrenhal? Now, we don't obviously have a definitive answer for this, but I think there's enough in the lore of A Song of Ice and Fire and that we see in season 2 of the show to give us a good pointer as to how Alys can be doing this. Now, an important thing for kind of context here is that Harrenhal itself is deemed as cursed. Now, this goes all the way back to its construction, with Harren the Black seemingly pouring human blood into the mortar, and then when he refuses to bend the knee to Aegon the Conqueror, Aegon then burns it with Balerion, melting and causing the castle to be in the state of disrepair that it is in, and ending the line of Harren the Black and all of his sons within the walls. Then obviously you've got the death of House Strong within the walls, what we obviously know is done by Lord Larys. However, it is kind of further giving credence to this idea that Harrenhal itself is cursed, and all these kind of horrors and tragedies befall within the walls, which I think, if anything, gives an excuse for people's reasoning or people's lack of kind of intuition of, oh, how is Alys doing this? Oh, it's just because Harrenhal's cursed. But Alys herself, I think, is doing this with the power of the weirwoods. Now, those that noticed after Daemon's first kind of weird vision, he awakes at the foot of a weirwood tree, where Alys then says to him,
"You will die in this place."
Now, that to me suggests that she has a sense of prophetic vision and is potentially a green seer. We don't really know, but I think she's using the power of the weirwoods and the old gods, such like Bloodraven and Bran do in Game of Thrones Season 6 and obviously within the books. So I think the weirwoods have a very big part to play in that. As well as that, Alys literally said verbatim, the bed that Daemon sleeps in, which is where he has the majority of these visions, is built out of a weirwood tree that was felled during the construction of Harrenhal. And then there's another theory that I will give full credit to a good friend of mine and mutual of mine over on TikTok, JJ. I will have a link in the description of this video. Much better A Song of Ice and Fire content creator than I am. Please do go give her a follow. But it's theorizing that the thing that she gave Daemon in that cup, which Daemon then drank, was weirwood paste. Now, weirwood paste we have seen before. It is what Bloodraven gives to Bran to kind of awaken his third eye, and as Bloodraven puts it, this will help awaken your gifts and wed you to the trees. Now, Daemon obviously isn't a green seer, however, this could cause Daemon to be more susceptible to having these form of visions, and the presence of these weirwoods around Harrenhal and Alys's presence potentially give her the option to push these visions onto Daemon and give these suggestions. As obviously, I don't think it's as simple as Alys is literally going, I want Daemon to envisage this kind of thing, but she has some awareness of what Daemon is seeing in these visions, especially given the whole "it's a pity that you never knew your mother" line, as that is obviously right after Daemon has had this weird trippy vision of Alyssa. But I think that is the most likely theory as to how Alys is kind of having this magical control in Harrenhal, and that being the link to the old gods and the weirwood trees. Now, for the next part of this video, I'm going to be discussing Alys Rivers' future from Fire and Blood that has not yet made it into House of the Dragon, so this will contain spoilers for Season 2 of House of the Dragon and any potential future seasons going forward. Now, if you're not bothered about spoilers, by all means continue watching, but if you are, I would advise skipping over to the outro, as I will be discussing very spoiler-heavy parts of Fire and Blood. Following the events that we've seen so far in Season 2, Daemon will eventually leave Harrenhal unoccupied to be taken by Aemond Targaryen and Sir Criston Cole. Now, upon arriving, Aemond puts every member of House Strong to the sword, except for, mysteriously, Alys Rivers, who is quote-unquote besotted with and takes into his bed. Now, throughout the events of the dance, Aemond and Criston eventually then leave Harrenhal again for it to be taken by Sabbath Frey by Team Black, and she finds Alys Rivers and she claims to have a dragon bastard in her belly, essentially the bastard son of Aemond Targaryen. Now, Aemond eventually comes back to Harrenhal, takes Alys away, and she's next seen just before the battle above the God's Eye, which I'm not going to go into in this video, but is a very, very cool event which basically results in the death of both Aemond Targaryen and Daemon Targaryen in possibly the coolest way possible. However, Alys is last seen watching the kind of events on the Kingspire Tower at Harrenhal, and is not seen again until supposedly these reports of a witch queen of Harrenhal are heard by the future king/queen of Westeros. I'm not going to tell you because you can read the book and find out, and a member of the Kingsguard is sent there. Essentially, Alys says to the Kingsguard, you're going to bend the knee to my son, who is the true-born son of Aemond Targaryen and the true heir to the Iron Throne. The Kingsguard essentially just laughs at him, saying, I'm not kneeling for a bastard. And this is where accounts somewhat differ in Fire and Blood. Supposedly, Alys uses her magic and explodes his head, which is a possible explanation for how he dies, but there is other accounts that say it was a bunch of crossbowmen on the side that shot at him essentially after he made those comments and refused to bend the knee. The hosts that went there with the Kingsguard Knight are essentially all tortured and killed except for one, who is released with this mysterious message that they all should bend the knee. However, if any of them laugh at Alys's proposal, the message carrier will die. And upon like the kind of first kind of statements by the message carrier saying, please don't laugh, please don't laugh, please don't laugh, they say, we won't laugh. Obviously, they hear that Alys is trying to make everyone in the realm bend the knee to a supposed bastard. They laugh at him, and he collapses dead with kind of white hand marks as if a woman had choked him to his death. So, and that's the last we hear of Alys Rivers, and I have no doubt we will hear more about her in Fire and Blood 2, or the second part of Fire and Blood. I think is going to be titled Blood and Fire, funnily enough. But I have no doubt we will hear more about her in the histories of Westeros. But that'll be all for today's video on who is Alys Rivers. Thank you all very, very much for watching. Please be sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, and also consider subscribing while you're at it, because I do try and post these lore videos once a week alongside my weekly reaction to that week's episode of House of the Dragon. I've done every episode so far, so please be sure to go check that out. Also, leave a comment. What do you think of Alys Rivers so far this season? Especially if you've read Fire and Blood, how do you think they're adapting her? Because honestly, I think they're doing a really, really good job so far. I think Gail Rankin was a really, really good choice to play Alys Rivers, and I think giving her more of a spotlight has been really good, especially given that she gets more involved later during the Dance of the Dragons, and again, kind of just like having a cameo and then involving her more later wouldn't make as much sense. So I think giving her the spotlight this early on is a really good decision. But again, that'll be all for today's video. Thank you all very, very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.